So the developers decided to drop a new team letter of appreciation. And yeah, at this point we basically all know the pattern, which is that they drop one of these during the anniversary or during Black Friday. It's basically their way of, I guess, advertising the game or advertising the fact that they're listening. Which I have no issue with. It does kind of show that the game is still alive and well, and it's going to keep going for at least another year. And of course, that is essential. That is important for anybody who spends, anybody who invests their time in the game. And these sorts of developer to player communications are, you know, always incredible to see. And I kind of wish they would do them a bit more often. But yeah, it is what it is. Even twice per year, I suppose, is better than nothing. However, I'm not gonna lie, I was actually kind of disappointed by today's letter, and I wanted to go over it together with you guys. But essentially, it's just not as great as the previous ones. And at this point, you have to ask yourself, is communication really essential if it's going to be half-assed? And yeah, I guess I just wanted to see how other people feel about it, but maybe I'm being a bit pessimistic, a bit overtly negative, but I wasn't really touched or interested by any of the topics that were covered here. Um, the development team letter of appreciation for the 11th year anniversary. This is the post on the forums, and essentially it goes over the what's it called? The not the trivia, but the thingamajig that we had to do. It was in the mail in the game. You had to answer a bunch of questions, and now we have the answers. The survey results, exactly. That's the word I was looking for. So this survey covered pretty much every topic that the game suffers from, which is characters, uniforms, all of that. And usually in the past, we've been led to believe that these surveys are somewhat faked, as in they follow the plans of the developers already from the get go, and the developers kind of skew the answer in their own favor, depending on what updates they're planning to do in the future. And I can kind of see that being the case for this one as well. But of course, that's up to you guys to decide whether you want to believe that or not. Not gonna read all of this. You guys can read it for your own selves. But basically, yeah, it's just covering the various different topics. And I want to do that as well, one by one. And we're gonna start off with the heroes, uniforms, and themes. So for the most requested new heroes, this is the table that they devised. You can see that Galactus is winning by a landslide. He's at 31%, so basically a third of the voters want Galactus in as a new character, which is quite a bit considering there's 9 other characters in the table. Now, I don't know when they are planning to give us Galactus, how they're planning to give us Galactus, whether through his already existing GPR, whether through a new Epic Quest, whether he's gonna be a new native tier 4, the first native tier 4. We don't know. And I'm not here to, you know, try to guess how the developers are gonna go about it. But I will say that I'm relatively certain Galactus is coming in the next year or so. Um, and I do think he's going to be native tier 4 because that's one of the prerequisites for the developers to have an excuse to move on to tier 5. We need to get a native tier 4, at least one, because we had a lot of native tier 3s before we got to tier 4, but we still haven't gotten a single native tier 4, which is crazy. It's been 4 years now, basically, since Tier 4 got introduced, and we still don't have a single one. So, yeah, I would not be surprised if Galactus is the first one. We have some Spider-Verse characters or Spider-Man related characters at number 2 and 3. Mr. Negative, I love seeing Mr. Negative that high. I actually voted for him because he's a cool villain, and I think they have an opportunity to make a very unique character that is also not insanely expensive. Galactus is definitely going to be native tier 4 or at least native tier 3, whereas Mr. Negative can be much more affordable. Same thing goes for Penny. I think Penny has a very nice opportunity to be another Rivals collab, but also a good support for Spider-Verse characters because the current PvP team for Spider-Verse characters is just Spider-Woman lead, and then Scarlet Spider, and of course Peter Parker himself. And it's basically those three characters. It's mostly Peter Parker, mostly Spidey himself, that have any sort of PvP value whatsoever. And the more, the better. I would like to see some more, you know, synchronization and synergy between the characters of the Spider-Verse tag, and Penny might be a nice way to go about it. Annihilus is kind of low, which I was kind of surprised by. We have Silver Sable, another Spider-Man villain, a few mutant characters like Nate Gray and Vulcan, and of course Cloak and Dagger and Jeff, the Marvel Rivals characters. I was actually very surprised that Cloak and Dagger aren't added with the Rivals collab. So, yeah. The good news is we might be looking at a second one, as the survey results kind of hint at. But overall, nothing too surprising for the new heroes. For the uniforms, however, things are a bit surprising. Um, Viper and Cassandra, I didn't expect people to want them to get uniforms, because Cassandra is pretty recent, and Viper is just not popular at all. But I was very surprised by Jubilee being this low. I know she's not that popular, but she is from the 90s X-Men show, right? She is a fan favorite. Maybe of an older generation, but still she is a fan favorite. More so than characters like Cable, I would say. I mean, people love Cable, but Jubilee's up there, right? Or I don't know, maybe it's just me. But I don't really like how they've been neglecting her. And I also have a 6-star artifact of Jubilee. Um, so I'm kind of looking forward to her getting a rework. Sylvie being higher than Jubilee is crazy, man. I don't know what you guys are smoking with that one. Sylvie's just not that cool or interesting. Come on. Molecule Man would have been higher, I believe, if he was more obtainable, but people didn't vote for him because he's extremely expensive. And that makes sense. I'm not gonna blame anybody for that. Wiccan makes sense. Wiccan should be top 3. I would argue Wiccan is actually the one who deserves the uniform the most, because he came out in 2016, I believe. Like he entered the game. Pretty sure the new Avengers update was 2016. It might have been 2017, but still, it's been like a decade for Wiccan. So it's about time he gets something. Valeria, yeah, I mean, she's cool, and I do think she has opportunity to upscale the Fantastic Four synergy even more. And then Ghost Panther is at number 1. No surprise there. He's the best character out of these 8, because of his support abilities. So him getting a uniform and a tier 4 to make him usable in things like World Boss Legend Plus, it just makes sense, right? Nothing to complain about here. I will say that if they do give him a uniform, I can definitely see them doing a Halloween-esque uniform for him. A la Yondu, a la Mysterio, a la characters like Sin and Morgan Le Fay. He's probably gonna be one of those expensive support um holiday unis. I would guess for Halloween, but it could also be for, I don't know, Christmas or something if they wanna if they wanna be quirky about it. Most requested allies for new heroes. Unfortunately, the two allies, or I guess factions that should have gotten high votes didn't. And that's kind of disappointing because Inhumans are just relegated to paywall, ABX, ABL bullshittery, which I'm not a huge fan of. And then Creature is just such a niche typing that I mean, realistically speaking, even if this was a very requested typing, they couldn't really add that many characters from the Creature tag. So I guess it makes sense in last place. Mutants are number one, no surprise there either. There's still quite a few mutants, even in the poll. We had Vulcan and Nate Gray. And there's also others like Armor, Onslaught, Blob. Characters who are pretty popular and they can definitely add to the game. And of course, mutant updates are always an excuse for the eventual Jean Grey uniform, which is gonna break the game. Overall, I'm not really surprised by these results, but there is another section of the survey that surprised me quite a bit, and it's this one right here. So this is concerning the giant boss raid plan that they covered in the December development team letter from last year, which was after Black Friday. I think it was for Christmas or something. And this talks about the characters that we should be getting a giant boss raid for. Now I might make a video on this in the future, but essentially, I think this is indicative of their plans to add tier 5 by the end of the year. I would say before Doomsday. Because with Dormammu, we got the materials required for tier 4. It kind of makes sense for a new giant boss raid to give the materials required for tier 5, right? And they're kind of getting our feedback in order to decide which character we want to fight against. And this disappointed me so much because, guys, how is Shuma Gorath last? Have you guys never played the Marvel vs. Capcom? Come on, man. He's like a staple in the multiversal sort of Marvel big gigantic universal threat niche, right? He fits the description of a giant boss raid perfectly. And yet he's only at 7%. Maybe because they did him pretty dirty in the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness movie where they killed him off in like 5 minutes. But I'm very disappointed that he's this low. Come on, man. I love Shumagorath. Blackheart, I also really love. One of my favorite bosses from Marvel Ultimate Alliance. Shout out to the people who know that game. But, yeah, he's only at number 4. I think Blackheart is actually a better world boss than giant boss, because he's not giant. Blackheart is the son of Mephisto, for those of you who don't know, by the way. He looks pretty cool, but he isn't huge, so it doesn't make sense. Chaos King is awesome. Chaos King is the Japanese Shinto god of chaos, I think. I'm pretty sure. Um, he just looks really cool, but he's not really that deep of a character. And then the big surprise here is at number 1 and number 2. Onslaught, I thought was the running favorite, not gonna lie. I voted for Shumagurath, obviously, because I just explained how much I like him, but Onslaught, we've had posts about Onslaught on Reddit, on the Discords, on YouTube videos made about him with thumbnails. People have been requesting Onslaught for such a long time, and yet only 15% voted for him. He's 2% higher than Blackheart and Chaos King. And that just surprised me quite a lot. Because Onslaught is the manifestation of Magneto and Professor X combined. he's such a cool merger and he's such a cool entity. But I guess in a similar way to Blackheart, I can also see him working better as a world boss than a GBR. Still, I expected him to win, right? But no, the gods decreed something else, and that something else is called Ego the Living Planet. Now, I don't know if this is MCU bias or if you guys just lost your damn minds, but Ego? Come on, man. He's not that cool at all. Ego is a bum, even in the comics. I was so disappointed when I saw Ego this high up. 24, that's a quarter of the people voting for Ego. That's just insane to me. But, hey, it is what it is. Now, they do go ahead and say that the survey results are not, um, they shouldn't be taken as the absolute definitive thing that we're getting in the game. And I do believe they aren't gonna give us Ego after all. I think Onslaught should be first, but still, I don't know if this is MCU bias. This has to be MCU bias, right? This has to be MCU bias for Guardians of the Galaxy too. Anyways, I digress. Let's continue. And then there's some content improvement for game modes that desperately need it. And I'm not one of those people, I'm not one of the YouTubers who have enough time during the day to play this content. And basically, all the game modes covered here are game modes that I find any excuse to skip over. I don't play story mode because I don't like just having my phone taken for like hours every single day. I don't play Shadowland anymore because although they did improve the rewards with the shop, it's so time consuming when I could be spending time for the other aspects of my life that are arguably more worth it than Future Fight sometimes. And I mention Rifts, although I really like the rewards they give with the artifact gambling, are just so inconvenient with the whole mythic system, normal to mythic rarity system, that they're kind of disincentivize you grinding on your own and having you basically are forced to communicate to others and uh there's also the aspect of constantly being in a rush because dimension rifts can only be entered by 5 people, so you kind of have to time it with your friends, otherwise somebody else can take your place and then you're kind of stuck and you can't enter the rift and it's a mess. It's an absolute mess and they need to get rid of that whole thing. So yeah, I'm not surprised by these results whatsoever. All 3 of these game modes in my opinion need improving, and the main way to improve them is to make them more independent, more personal instead of community focused, and much less time consuming, especially Shadowland. Shadowland is like a few hours per week. That's just, yeah, please don't. Shadowland should at most take as much as zombie survival takes. And zombie survival takes 1 run, maybe 2 if you fail the first time on a high stage, which is like 3 minutes, 4, and then basically auto-playing it for extra times. So it takes like 15 minutes per week. If Shadowland takes 30 per week, I'll be happy. But the moment you start adding more and more gameplay to it, it's, yeah. I don't know, it's kind of difficult because it's also the appeal of the game mode is to use your whole roster, and you couldn't metaphysically do that in 30 minutes, even if you wanted to. And I understand that Shadowland's gonna lose its gimmick if you make it auto clearable or clear ticketable. But still, they have to find a way to make it less time consuming. Um, I'm surprised that this patch is here. It's not content that is difficult to play daily. It's not supposed to be played daily. You're supposed to clear it once and then reap the passive rewards. So Netmarble, please do not touch this patch. Just add a new sector. Legendary Battle, I don't even know why this game would still exist, to be honest, because they stopped doing them for MCU updates. They kind of have to merge it with the new events that we have, the timeline survival events. And then Dimension Rift here again. Yeah, that's pretty much how I feel about these game modes. One thing that disappoints me is the lack of PvP game modes. I don't know why Timeline Battle isn't here. It's so old, outdated. I would argue Timeline Battle deserves an update more than Story, because Story mode I feel has been buffed 6 times in the past 5 years, whereas Timeline basically hasn't been touched in a decade. And to me, that's just wrong. It's supposed to be the main PvP game mode, and it gives the best rewards because of the crystals, and yet the developers just refuse to touch it. That's just weird to me. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. And then that just concludes the developer letter. And one thing that I forgot to mention is that they are planning to add a new. Yeah, beyond giant boss raids, they are preparing a new epic quest for the second half of the year. So that could either be linked to Galactus, or it could be linked to mutants with Nate Grey and Vulcan. It could be linked to Spider-Man or some sort of New York street thing with Penny, Cloak and Dagger, and Mr. Negative. I don't know. I couldn't be certain at this point. Maybe in the future we will have better ideas, but for now, yeah, I couldn't tell you for sure. Um, One thing that I did want to cover before I end the video is that in the old developer letter that we got, they covered a lot of aspects that weren't addressed here. Or I guess they kind of promised too much and are now under delivering because we're 5 months into the year and we don't really have as much changes from this letter as I would like to have. So here they talk about updates that we're gonna get, including new uniforms for characters that have been waiting for a long time. They've definitely improved in this aspect because we got uniforms for characters like Richard Rider and Phyla-Vell. But of course, this can always be better. Like, yeah, Crystal got a uniform, I guess that counts as well. But like, Wiccan, Hulkling, yeah, there's still quite a few too many characters for my liking that are being ignored. Um, but yeah, they talk about things like MCU themed updates and also the collaborations for Cosmic Invasion Marvel Rivals. They talk about phasing out time consuming content, so this includes what I was talking about with story mode, dimension rifts, and everything. And we haven't seen any of that yet, and they are still kind of debating it as we speak. Like, they haven't really done anything, and they don't say they've done anything for story, dimension rifts, or Shadowland. They could be doing it behind the scenes, but nowhere in this development letter does it say, yeah, we're working on this. This is just the survey results, and basically they just say, yeah, we're planning to do this, but we're asking for patience and it's gonna take some time. Which kind of disappoints me. I was expecting more rapid, more aggressive changes. Um, we did get world boss content improvements, but not a new world boss. And we still don't have a new epic quest or a new world boss or a new giant boss raid. We do not have the expansion of Dispatch, and we also do not have the update to Shadowland. So none of the content that they promised has actually been added in the game. And we are already at May, basically. So, yeah, I'm getting a bit worried, not gonna lie. I think there's a very good chance they're gonna push something to next year, such as like the new dispatch sector, for example, or maybe even the rework to Shadowland or Dimension Rifts. And yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll see. Talk about the tier 4 striker skills and the custom gear thing, which they did improve in the anniversary update. And then that's it. So overall, they have addressed most of the things that they promised, but I'm a bit disappointed that we haven't gotten any of the content um, updates that they actually were talking about. And I think it's about time that the game goes towards that direction again. Because as cool as the uniforms and the characters are, we also do need new play spaces where we can actually use them. So, yeah, Netmarble, if you're watching this, you're doing a good job, but shift your priorities to the game mode improvements because the game kind of needs it. And I also do not like the lack of PvP. Like, they should have talked about Otherworld Battle or Timeline. I guess the play, like, the percentages of people that play those game modes is still pretty good, so that's why they don't want to update the game modes because they kind of work already, but I think that's the wrong way to go about it. I think a popular game mode like World Boss, for example, you should always make even better. It's it's what the people love, it's what the people care about. And yeah, that's the gist of it. That's kind of how I feel about this whole thing. People spamming their codes in the comments still. Um yeah, it's been pretty chaotic with the agent training center thing. That's basically how I feel. Let me know in the comments if you guys share the pain or I guess the disappointment of Shumagurath not being chosen as the giant boss raid. But yeah, overall, I think the game's doing pretty good. I just wish we had gotten like at least one decent game mode before the half point of the year, but I guess that's too much to wish for, eh? Anyways, I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.